The Dragon Priestess Heart is an item in Elden Ring that turns the user into a dragon form. It can be obtained in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC by completing the quests of the Dragon Communion Priestess and Igon. Along the way, multiple ancient dragon smithing stones and unique items will be obtained, all of which will be covered in this guide. As usual, useful timestamps can be found in the video description. I also recommend checking the pinned comment before watching, as I will update it with any additional important information as time goes on. First, to access the DLC, you will need to defeat Radon and Mohg, Lord of Blood. I cover both of those extensively in my complete guide on how to prepare for the DLC, which I will leave a link to near the bottom of this video's description. Once we've done that, we can enter the Shadow Realm by interacting with Miquella's cocoon. The first thing we will need to do is reach the Dragon's Pit, and along the way, we can find and speak with the NPC Igon. From the Gravesite Plain Site of Grace, we'll need to head north and cross the Elac Great Bridge to reach the Castle Front Site of Grace. We can then move southeast along the road to reach the Pillar Path waypoint. We'll then need to travel a short distance southwest along the path that is marked with several stone dragon statues. We should find an NPC by the name of Igon laying along the path, and we can speak with him until he has nothing new to say. Continuing along, we may be invaded by the Ancient Dragon Man, which must be defeated. Eventually, we will reach the Dragon's Pit dungeon. Feel free to explore this dungeon on your own, but for the purposes of this guide, we will just be taking the fastest route through. For the most part, all we need to do is follow the path lit by braziers and candles. If we go up to the north in the large ramped chamber, we will find a magma worm which drops an ancient dragon smithing stone when defeated. But for our purposes, we will head down to the south. This will lead to another chamber with an altar and a large pit, which we can jump down into. Doing so will take us to the boss chamber, where we will need to face off with the Ancient Dragon Man. Upon his defeat, we will be rewarded with the Dragon Hunter's Great Katana. We will then need to continue moving south through the large heavy doors to reach the foot of the Jagged Peak, a somewhat hidden area where we may continue our quest. As a quick note, we will be fighting a lot of dragons. Fortunately, the Dragon Hunter's Great Katana scales with strength and dexterity, and it has a great weapon art that can be charged to unleash a ranged slice attack. In addition, it deals extra damage to dragon-type enemies, making it perfect for dealing with them, but I digress. As we enter the foot of the Jagged Peak, we can go up on the ridge to the south to find a message from Igon. I'm not sure if it's important to read it, but that's what I did. Also, down in the pit, there is a Jagged Peak Drake. I'm not sure if it needs to be defeated for the quest, but that is what I did, so it's probably best to just do that. It will drop a dragon heart and dragon scale flesh when defeated. Afterwards, we can move down the southern path to reach the Grand Altar of Dragon Communion. After discovering the Site of Grace and resting at it, the Dragon Communion Priestess NPC will appear, and we should speak with her and accept her quest. She will give us the Ancient Dragon's Blessing, a consumable, and then we will want to speak with her until all of her dialogue is exhausted. Before moving on, let's cover how to get the map for this region in case anyone does not have it. It is down on the Cerulean coast, and to reach it, we will head southwest over the enormous dragon and down into an area full of red flowers. Continuing southwest, we should be able to find a boat-like structure that can be safely jumped down to in order to reach the Cerulean coast. The map is then just a short distance southwest. While we're here, we might as well discover the nearby site of Grace, as well as one of Miquella's crosses. Next, we will fast travel back to the Dragon's Pit terminus and take the northeastern path from the foot of the Jagged Peak. Running along the cliff face, we will eventually reach what I believe is the tallest spirit spring in the game, and that will take us to the foot of the Jagged Peak site of Grace. A short distance further up the mountain, we will find two dragons fighting one another. We can let them go at it for a while, but at some point we will need to interject ourselves and defeat both dragons. Afterwards, Igon should be heard laughing and congratulating us. He can be found lying along the path up the Jagged Peak to the east. We will want to speak with Igon until he gives us his furled finger. There will be another dragon that we need to face off with before reaching the next site of Grace, so it's a good idea to go back and rest at the previous Grace before moving forward. With that, we will begin scaling the Jagged Peak, moving east. Turning south along the path, we will need to maneuver around falling boulders. Near where the boulders fall, there is a skidoo tree fragment that can be picked up. Turning east once more, we will run into Ancient Dragon Senesax. This one gave me a really tough time, so any tips on how to defeat them would be greatly appreciated. Once they are defeated though, we will be rewarded with both a regular and a somber Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone. A short distance north from here, we'll find the Jagged Peak mountainside site of Grace. I will be taking the most direct path from here to the summit, but feel free to explore on your own, as I know for a fact that there is at least one Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone and one somber Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone between this site of Grace and the next. For the most part, we will just be moving up and southwest to reach our destination. There are a few spirit springs along the way that will make our ascent possible. Eventually, the path will turn east as we cross the last stretch of the climb. Pause here if you want to avoid spoilers, as I'll be covering some tips for the fight with Bayle the Dread. For everyone else, Igon's summoning sign should appear near the entrance to the boss arena, but will only do so after Bayle makes his entrance. That means for our first attempt, we will need to run towards the center to trigger Bayle's arrival, and then double back towards the arena's entrance to summon in Igon. It took me a while to defeat Bayle, and further attempts were made more difficult by the fact that Bayle attacks almost immediately after entering the arena. I'll try to show some of his more difficult moves to deal with, and how I managed to avoid them. I ended up using the Dragon Hunter's Great Katana with the Mimic Tier summon, and Igon to help take the dragon down. The deadliest moves come during Bayle's second phase, so if you have any ability to do burst damage, I recommend saving it for then. Once Bayle is finally defeated for good, we will be rewarded with the legendary Heart of Bayle, which can be taken to the Grand Altar of Dragon Communion for a reward. Before doing that though, let's return to the last place we saw Igon, which should be a short distance southeast of the foot of the Jagged Peak Site of Grace. There, we will be able to pick up Igon's Greatbow, armor set, and bell bearing. The bell bearing can be turned into the Twin Maiden husks at Round Table Hold to make Igon's Harpoons available for purchase. They are special arrows for Igon's Greatbow and deal extra damage to dragons. Now let's go to the Grand Altar of Dragon Communion. There, we can interact with the red smoke and select Communion with Bayle. There are two options to choose from, Bayle's Tyranny and Bayle's Flame Lightning. As far as I know, only one Heart of Bayle can be obtained per playthrough, so if you want both of these, then one will need to be obtained now, and the other in New Game Plus. Now, as far as dragon form is concerned, we will find two items on the ground where the Dragon Priestess once stood. The first is the Flowerstone Gavel, which is an arcane-based weapon that has a red lightning weapon art. It is a pretty nice ranged attack option for arcane builds. The second item is the Priestess Heart, and this is a reusable consumable that can only be used while no armor is worn. Using it will cause oneself to take on the form of a dragon, which also comes with the benefit of boosting ancient dragon cult incantations. The only downside is that you will have to deal with the consequences of not having armor. However, the dragon form does seem to provide some resistance and armor, as I don't think I take as much damage in that form when compared to being unarmored in human form. Also, be warned that the only way to change out of dragon form is by dying. As mentioned before, the Priestess Heart is reusable, so you can use it as often as you want. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me in the comments where I'll do my best to help. If you want to see more great content, you can head over to my channel, and if you're new, consider subscribing. You're helping me feed my cat, her name's Marshmallow. Have a great day if you're here today, have a great Friday, and a great weekend, and as always, thanks for watching.